Thank you for tuning in to the Black Money Tree Podcast, hosted by entrepreneur, investor, and philanthropist Jerome D. Love. We are committed to teaching you how to build wealth so that you can build your community. At the Black Money Tree, our goal is to empower wealth creation and create economic self-sufficiency in order to empower generations to come. Society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never enjoy. Powered by Wells Fargo Bank. Welcome to the Black Money Tree Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Black Money Tree Podcast, Season 2. I'm really excited about this movement and what we're doing in Season 2. Boom, that's our theme. Building our own marketplace. And there is surely a black boom going on in this country. There was an article on Bloomberg that said 1.5 million new black entrepreneurs were birthed in August of 2021. There are a lot of factors that go into that. A lot of people were laid off. A lot of people just got disgruntled on working on jobs and they said, I'm going to start my business. But whatever it is, we going to ride that wave. And at Texas Black Expo and the Black Money Tree, we are committed to helping to empower you to build wealth so that you can build your community. And a critical component to that is entrepreneurship. And I'm really excited about today's guest. We have one of the nation's premier entrepreneurs, and I'm proud to say that she is a friend, Miss Zawadi Bryant, formerly president and CEO of NightLight Pediatric Urgent Care. Now she's living the good life. She's done what many of us entrepreneurs want to do, built her business, sold her business, and probably thinking of the next steps, I assume. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. But Zawadi, welcome to the Black Money Tree Podcast.
Thank you, Jerome, for inviting me. I'm excited.
Well, no problem. I know that when I thought of the Black Money Tree and the type of entrepreneurs and businesses that I think the community needs, you were the first person that came to mind. You've done what a lot. I think Forbes magazine, you've been on all kinds of boards. You sold your business. So let's just talk about, when you started, let's talk about NightLight so people know what it is. I think the concept is just great, innovative. Yeah. Talk about how y'all grew. And then, the sale process. Go ahead.
Sure. So we started the business in 2007. Dr. Jennels, Connie, and I, all three of us. And so we started the business with the idea that children do not need to be in the emergency room at night for cold, cough, flu, and fever. Those are things that are not emergencies. They're not going to die from them. But because the doctor's office is closed after 5, they had no other place to go other than the emergency room. And so we went out, we had our little pitch book. We went out to the pediatricians and to parents and asked them, would they come if we had a doctor's office that was open that just saw kids at night? And everyone overwhelmingly said yes. And so we started off with our small little office in Sugar Land, 1,400 square feet next to Babies R Us. And I'm like, if we can't attract parents next door to Babies R Us, then this just isn't going to be a business that's going to thrive. And so within less than a year, we were door to door, to capacity, and okay, we must be onto something. And then we added our second location in Cy-Fair. And so we grew as demand requested that we grow. We would always survey our patients. Where are they coming from? They were coming as far from Galveston. They were coming as far as, Lake Jackson. And so we were like, okay, we need to expand because the demand is obviously there. And so over the next 15 years, we grew to 8 locations. And right about, I would say 2010, we started let's put a plan together.
3 years. Wow.
Yeah. Well, no, we grew 2010 is when we started thinking, okay, let's build this business to sell.
Okay.
So in 2010, I think we had 2 locations.
Okay.
But to me, I was like, okay, if we're going to add a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, then we need to scale and we need to somewhat act like a franchise business so that, either we can franchise it to others or we will have something that's a product that we can sell to investors. And so in 2010, we put together our pitch book to then start talking to investors, start talking to venture capital. What do we need to do to professionalize the business so that it can be a package that can be expanded beyond even Houston? And so along the way, we started maturing and growing and learning how to deal with employees, which is always fun. And so we had what we called like NightLight in a box is what I called it. And that's what got us on Forbes. That was like this, people were like, tell us more about this NightLight in a box. And basically I was like, I want to be like the McDonald's of urgent care. I want, you know, if you're in Denver, if you're in Atlanta, you will be able to go to a NightLight. It will be after hours. It'll be urgent care. It'll just be for kids. And so we started to build the business in that framework. And then we started getting a lot of people interested in buying the business. And finally in 2021, we sold the business.
All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So that made me think of two questions. Let me go to the first one first. Education. You talked about how you saw it in 2010 and you started strategizing and planning. You got an MBA.
Yes.
How much do you credit that MBA for? And how important do you think higher education is needed in terms of growing a strong, sustainable business?
Yeah. So I have an engineering undergrad, I have an MBA, and I worked in corporate America. And I think all three of those really impacted my thought process and growth. So I had worked for HP, Hewlett Packard, as well as BP, British Petroleum, very large companies. And so I already knew like these repeatable processes, these things that companies put in place, these, you know, the employee handbook and all of the HR requirements and things that I'm like, okay, risk aversion and all of that. So I had that in the back of my brain. And then I had the engineering, like, you know, processes, like how do you build things to scale, right? And then the MBA kind of just gave me a wide view into, okay, not only HR, but marketing, accounting. And so I knew enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
So I think it's very helpful to know all of the things that you need to know in business, but I didn't have a deep understanding of any of that.
Yeah.
So when it came time to do like your HR, you know, guides and handbooks and all of that, I'm like, I know I need it. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So it's same thing with accounting. Like, I don't know like the left and right side of the, you know, the ledger, but I know it's important. So let me find someone, you know. So I think the MBA kind of gave me like with case studies that you're learning, like what businesses did well, what they did poorly, you know, how businesses went out of business, how they thrived and survived. So it gives you a framework of all of those things, but it doesn't give you a deep knowledge. And I think experience does that.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to ask. Do you even really think it's possible? I tell people it's like when I got my real estate license, I tell you, it's like getting a driver's license. You have that piece of paper, but that don't mean you know how to drive a car.
Right.
You ain't going to know how to drive a car until you get out there, somebody cuts you off, you see them red lights go in front of you, you looking at the car in front of them for you to know what to look out for and things of that nature. But no, that's good. Now, talk about the transition from, and we've talked about this offline, you started small and you were doing everything.
Yes.
And then you brought on your administrative assistant, Brittany.
Yes.
And I remember you said, whoo, this just, your whole world changed.
Yes.
Talk about that process from doing everything to really allowing other people doing stuff for you. And how important is that to really growing your business?
Oh, it's absolutely required. When she came on board, that was part of our plan.
Yeah.
Like in 2010, I'm like, I have to get an assistant. Like I cannot do everything, the tactical things, and be strategic. I mean, I know at least my brain doesn't function like that. Like I can't do all of that together. And so when she came on board, one of the things we had everything documented. So as I was moving through the company, like here's the front desk, you know, I was the front desk greeter for many years, you know? And so I had all the processes, like how do you greet? How do you check in a patient? How do you check out a patient? How do you bill? So I had all of that so that when it was time to hire people, they had a template. They had instructions on how to do the job. So I think that's important. You don't want to bring people in and tell them, oh, go make it happen. You know, you need to at least have some framework or some instructions or something to help get them going. And then she eventually made it her own. And that just helped me start pitching the business to investors, helping us grow at that third, fourth, fifth location. I couldn't have run the business and then grow the business at the same time.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Let me share. I'm going to share a story with you. I think I've shared it with you before, but maybe not in this context. 2007, y'all did Texas Black Expo. I believe it might have been one of the first, if not the first, marketing outreach that y'all did. I was at FD's Burgers and Wings in Alvin, Texas, and you came in. It was probably around June, July, and I was broke because Expo, we lost money the first year. We broke even the second year, so we still in the hole. Third year, which was 2007, we made a little money, so we got to pay everybody back from year one, but I still ain't had no money. And I remember you came in, and I was like, how did Expo go for you? You said, oh, man, it was amazing. It seemed like everybody that come in the door say they came from Texas Black Expo. And I was happy for you, but I'm like, how is everybody else being helped from this? And I'm broke. And that was one of the things that really made it click in my mind to really understand that it's bigger than me, and we have to be in a position to help others, and you can't quantify your value necessarily always based upon money. But I don't know if that was very significant for me. And then later when you guys grew to prominence in Forbes, like you say, you are one of our biggest sponsors and supporters. And for me, that's what the Black Money Tree is about. We got to build our businesses because they will then in turn support us. So you were on my board for many, many, many years. And just whenever we call, you've been there. Talk a little bit about that and the need for building our businesses so we can build our communities. And I know it's kind of two questions in one. Were you conscious of that and the impact you were making at the time when you were growing the business?
For me, I think when you're in the community, you see the needs of the community, and it becomes a driving force for you to be successful so that money can circulate in the community. We were just so excited about what you were doing and the Black Expo was doing to impact the community. It's like, we have to be involved. We have to stay engaged. Because we see that, because we're the first people come to when they need something, and we're the first people to support people. And so for me, I don't know if it's necessarily a conscious thing, but it's always just, it's just part of who we are, who I am, to give back to those that are giving to us because of the fact that was a venue where we always track. How did you hear about us? And people are like, oh, the Texas Black Expo. So I'm like, that's working for us. Yeah. And so let's continue to invest in what's working for us. And then as you started to blow up, then that brings us joy when we start to see that the institutions, the organizations that we're a part of, that we're supporting are doing well. So it's a cyclical, symbiotic thing. That, when you see it firsthand and then, seeing you, blow up and looking good and feeling good and, and the organization and you do so much. Yeah. Like this podcast, like we have to be so invested in our people growing, not only fiscally, financially, but like our community, building it up because again, where do they go? They go to the Black Expo, they go to Breakfast Club, they come to NightLight, they need something. So if we don't have those businesses in our community, where else do they go? Yeah. Talk about growing up. What were you exposed to? What were your parents entrepreneurs? What made you become an entrepreneur? Talk a little bit about growing up. Entrepreneurship was not in my family, was not anything that I considered. My mom, when I finished college, she worked at IBM. She retired from IBM. So it was all about getting that good job with the good corporate benefits. So when I left HP, she was going to have a heart attack. She was like, how do you leave HP? She just she could not comprehend leaving that good corporate job, the good benefits. And I was doing really well. I was traveling the world. I was getting promoted. That was an amazing experience. I definitely thought that was definitely a foundation to what I'm doing today. But so it wasn't, but my dad my name's Zawadi. So come on, like, you know, he's pan-Africanism.
Yeah.
He was like, we got to do for ourselves. We got to be about the people. We got, you know, so my dad was all about that. And so that's always been ingrained in me. All of his kids have Swahili names. He was like, we going back to Africa. We do, you know, so those community principles, we celebrated Kwanzaa every year. Okay. So, and this is in Austin. So, you know, that major, you know, for a Black family to be in Austin celebrating Kwanzaa. So, you know, that was just my upbringing as far as just corporate community economics, you know, and, you know, unity and all of that. So,
you know, that's interesting. I had a similar. My mama was a teacher. She'd be like, boy, I get my summers off. I got insurance. And she would just tell me. And then my dad, you know, he was military, didn't go to college. And I think he never said it, but I think he felt like if I would have gone to college, I would have been further along. Now, mind you, he paid for all of us to go through college cash. Amazing. My mama got a big old house that's paid off cash, a Lexus in the garage that paid off cash. But in his mind, he felt like he wasn't the success that he could have been. Yeah. And he used to say, boy, you got all that education and you just wasting it. You know, that's what my daddy told me until he retired and he came to the Black Expo. And he saw it, and he saw the mayor and the Congress people and everybody talking to me, and he was like, oh, that's my son, you know. So he kind of felt a sense of pride about it, even though he didn't necessarily understand it. I think part of it, we grew up on a farm, and we went bankrupt in the 80s because there was a drought. Oh, yeah. So being a farmer is an entrepreneur. You're spending your money, you're growing these crops, and you're trying to harvest, and you're trying to sell it. So I think for him, it was just kind of like, it's just easier just to go somewhere else because it was very difficult having to leave everything, you know, to go, because he got out the military, lost everything on the farm, bankruptcy, got back in the military full time, and then now he got his good government job and the benefits and the insurance and all that stuff. So it was like, all that stuff is for the birds. So, but what are you teaching your children? Do you promote entrepreneurship? I'm sure they've seen you. Did you get them involved at all with NightLight, and were you're working at the desk or what? Talk about that.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate at NightLight, and both of my children, I mean, very involved in the business. Okay. You know, they're always on, you know, we're always on the phone, right? Yeah. So they always are listening. And then they start repeating stuff. I'm like, y'all ear hustle too much. Yeah. But I mean, they can't help but hear stuff. You know, like the other day we were somewhere and Zaire was talking about prime real estate. And I'm just like, 10-year-old talking about prime real estate. Yeah. I mean, just the words, the vocabulary, the vernacular they use. It's obvious that, you know, Antoine and I have these conversations around them and they just listen. Yeah. You know, and so they, you know, I don't encourage anything other than for them to be successful and be able to be self-sustaining once they leave my house. So that's what we focus on. But, you know, whether they go in corporate America or entrepreneurship, I talk about all of my experiences, you know, at all of the companies. And they have heard me like through the processes of selling the business, the terms of EBITDA. They know what EBITDA is and they know what multiples are. And they know, you know, all that talk that we do, you know, around them, and they just hear it. And so, you know, I don't necessarily tell them you should be an entrepreneur, but they know about growing wealth, and they know about mom and dad's portfolio, and they know about mom and dad's, you know, what we do to grow our family wealth and our plans and all of that. And so they know that the importance of a dollar, and they know budgets, and they, you know, so they have all of that understanding. And they know about, they've been in conversations when I've had to let employees go, and when I promote employees, and when we celebrate the company, and all of those things. And so I just think their exposure is a lot broader than what I ever had. And so wherever they go, I'm hoping they like are successful. No, that's great. That's great. I have a similar experience. I remember one time, and I don't know where they got it from, but it had to be me. I heard my daughter, she was playing with her dolls or something, and she had a toy phone, and she picked it up and she said, "You need to have that contract, or she was like she was yelling at somebody. Like, if you don't have that contract, it's gonna be some trouble." And I was like, I was racking my brain. Or doll. It might not have been a doll, or maybe she was playing with us. But bottom line, she clearly heard that from me, and I was racking my brains. So when did I say that? But apparently, we pick it up. And then last story.
So my daughter's going to Howard. Yay.
Yes.
She moved in last weekend. And, I do real estate and I do construction. Yeah. And my wife sent me a text message. Her grandmother came down. They live in West Virginia. And they were trying to put some photos up on some pictures and stuff on the wall. Mm-hmm. And her grandmother was trying to put this photo up and couldn't get the nail to go in. And Jasmine was like, it's probably a stud. They're about 4 inches apart. But it was because I used to bring them around the houses. They knew what studs are. They know what a bottom plate, top plate, ceiling joist, wrap. They know all the language and the terminology. Mm-hmm. And it was funny, too, when I was a little bit more, let's just say, aggressive and direct with my kids. Mm-hmm. Y'all need to have your own business. Everywhere I went, I taught them stuff. Mm-hmm. I would quiz them on it. They create budgets. They have quarterly audits, where I look at their stuff. And then the funny thing is they have learned how, because they know if I give them $10 and they had 20, mm-hmm. and when I do the audit, I need to see $30 or a ledger of where that money has been. Mm-hmm. So they started kind of fudging stuff. But even in that process, they're learning how to manage money,
right.
So, right. But it's interesting how kids grow, develop, and what they pick up. Yeah. And for me, I think the greatest thing was being an entrepreneur. When you get that call, your kid's sick or whatever, you can go right then
Absolutely.
And there. I had a situation. My daughter was, when she was younger, I don't know if I ever told you this story. We took her to a daycare. We just transitioned for La Petite. They had shut down. And she was going to this home health care. And not sure exactly what happened, but one day I was going to drop her off. And she just said, Daddy, I don't want to go in there. And I was kind of like, I had a meeting with the city, and one of the city directors. I like, Jalea, I ain't got time. Go on up in there. Daddy, I don't want to go in there. And I was like, Jalea, go on up. And we walked to the door, and she just snatches her hand from me, and she starts to cry. And I was like, what is wrong with her? Now, so I put her in the car. Apparently, the lady that owned the house had a boyfriend, apparently, that showed up, and they was yelling and stuff the day before. So she doesn't really see a lot of that. Right. So she just didn't know how to feel about that environment. But what did I do? I put her in the back of the car. I drove downtown. I walked into the director's office. I said, this is my daughter, Jalea. Unfortunately, something happened at a daycare. I'm not sure what, but I didn't have no place to take her, so she's going to be sitting in with our meeting today. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
It's happened to me multiple times.
Yeah.
So that is definitely a blessing. So I think that flexibility, and it's good you share that story, because a lot of times people think it's just the mom entrepreneurs, but it's the dads too. Yeah. So it's great to hear that we, our children are so important, that you sense that, like, no, I'm not leaving my child here, and so we just gonna flow. Yeah. And the reality is, so many people don't have that luxury. If they don't go to work, they're gonna get fired. So they leaving their daughters at home with their uncle or this person and that person, and all kinds of things happen out of that. Right. So when we think about entrepreneurship and wealth in the community, it's bigger than us just having a Bentley, having a MK on your belt. It's about building our community, being able to be there for our kids. We build stronger children. They're going to build stronger communities for us all. So exactly. No, but I love it, Zawadi. I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited to say that you're my friend. And I truly, if I've never said it before, I appreciate everything that you've done for Texas Black Expo as a board member, as a sponsor, and much love, much success for all of your endeavors in the future. So I know you're not that big on social media, but if you have any handles or anything you want to share, or anything upcoming that you want to share with the people before we go. Yeah, I'm not on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, though. I don't really need, you just type in Zawadi Bryant. I'm probably the only Zawadi Bryant on LinkedIn. But no, I definitely, like you said, I'm cooking up some new things after my retirement. Yeah. Won't be long. Yeah. But yeah, so I won't be more active at that point on social media. So stay tuned. Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure having you, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of the Black Money Tree Podcast. And remember, this year's theme is boom. It's a black boom going on. Building our own marketplace. The Texas Black Expo and the Black Money Tree is
is geared towards and committed to helping you to build wealth through entrepreneurship, through wealth building. And we want to invite you to join us in Houston, Texas. We got all kinds of exciting things going on, and I can't wait to tell you guys who our very special VIP guest is going to be. I can't tell you yet, but tune in to the Black Money Tree. Go to our LinkedIn, go to our Instagram, our Facebook at the Black Money Tree, and go to theblackmoneytree.com for all of the details, as well as Texas Black Expo. And until next time, thank you for joining us again for the Black Money Tree Podcast Season 2. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Black Money Tree Podcast. Don't forget to like and share this video. And if you want more content like this, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll see you next time.